Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I'm just going to walk you through the latest trends for Australia for the month of September 2024. Here's a brief bio about myself. I'm a CPA, CGA. I've been working with the Office of Finance, whether that's driving data and AI solutions or overall financial results, reporting analysis for the past 35 years. I leverage macro micro indicators all the time as part of my discussion when I'm driving the best business outcomes for my clients. Here's the agenda. I'll talk about the stock market. I'll talk about retail sales, inflation, GDP, productivity, and other key areas. So if you look at the stock market here, they had a reasonable month over month growth of 2.2%. The stock market's had some wild swings over the last few months to do with the threat of um, global recessions, inflation, just other factors are driving in stock market performance. So Australia is seeing growth, slower growth over the last month or so, and that's something to bear in mind. This also gives you a couple of the areas of the industries as well have done well where others have struggled. This gives you some key areas. So Australia is pretty well driven by natural resources, whether that's liquefied natural gas, copper, or iron ore. So areas like Queensland and Western Australia have seen challenges with lower commodities, and I'll get into that later in discussion. So that's why you're seeing some different changes in terms of overall market performance. Retail spending, I've estimated it for right now as a small increase from the previous month. The retail sales at the time I did this presentation for July were not available. They actually are coming out on October 1st. It's just sometimes it's a laggard indicator. I just estimated right now. Either way, retail sales have seen a struggle over the last 12 months, and that makes sense because the government's been using interest rates to slow down consumer spending to kind of help reduce the money flow, money supply. Cost of living. Australia made a significant drop. They've been hovering around 3.5 to 4% for a while. The Reserve Bank of Australia has been very clear. They wanted to make sure that the inflation is heading in the right path. So they've been hesitant on interest rates. Now, countries like Canada and the U.S. have done cuts. Canada has got one that's coming up. The U.S. at a 0.5, which most cases when you see a significant rate cut like that, it's interesting because normally you don't see a half a point, a large cut like that, unless there's a threat of slower, sluggish economy or slower growth or possible threat of a recession. So the Reserve Bank of Australia has taken a very cautious approach, and it'll be very interesting to see how they look at economic data over the next few weeks up to when they do their next press release of where they state on interest rates. GDP, Australia is going to come in this year at 1.2%, so really slow growth. They're supposed to be close to about 2% in 2025. Either way, they're seeing slow growth. Now, there's some challenges in Australia. A lot of the growth has been led by, like Canada, by real estate as well as the public sector spending, and those are not sustainable. So they need to get output going to drive economic growth. And I'll get a little bit into further on some of the challenges around productivity. They're becoming some hindrance to GDP because Australia has seen over the last few quarters a shrink in the GDP per capita, and that's similar to what Canada is doing. So policies in Australia, both at the local, state, and federal level, need to be pivoted around productivity and other areas that can support long-term growth. Productivity. Reserve Bank of Australia has indicated that Australia's productivity has not improved, and they've used the 2016 and it's worsened since then. So there's a lot of challenges that Australia government needs to do to address with productivity. Fiscal health. Australia registered a 15 point, close to $16 billion budget surplus. They're going to be going into the red next year, and a lot of that's to do with some spending they're doing around energy rebates and other things that help consumers. But there's some challenges facing the fiscal management cycle because they're going to flip that to um, $1 billion deficit in 2024 to 2025. I want to talk about a few things here. That Australia is a commodity market, so they drive a lot of their stuff, copper and iron ore. Iron ore is a big issue for them because China has had sluggish economic growth, and that's facing them, and that's impacting the mining sector. Australia is still dealing with high inflation and concerns around overall economic growth and regulations, the new mandates on ESG, just everything else that's driving concerns around business confidence. Stock market, as I discussed earlier, had a decent month at 2.2%. Inflation has come down to 2.7%, but there's still concern around the viability, the fundamentals, are they strong enough to support it? I addressed productivity. This Australia and Canada are struggling with the same issues where they've got a huge concerns around productivity. The government just printing more money isn't going to solve the productivity issue. There needs to be more emphasis in innovation, emphasis in skill gap closing, emphasis around capital deployment. So there needs to be a pivot around that. I've listed copper. Copper is critical as part of the green transition. And capital spending, we're seeing up and down swings with that as well. And then, of course, I brought the ESG in just because it's a significant issue around the mandates coming up and the cost of those mandates. Here's some additional links. As I said, I do these presentations. I try to keep them short and succinct. I just want to give you an overview. If there's things I can help you, assist you with your journey or your business transformation, then reach out to me. Thank you.